This is Midrash Tanchuma on Parshat Ki Tisa and is entitled to Moshe asks God if he is jealous of the hunk of metal. An alternate headline could be how Nechama Leibowitz saved the day, as you will see. So the headline, of course, is referring to a very outlandish, irreverent, and seemingly irrelevant argument that Moshe would be using to save the Jewish people after the sin of the golden calf. And he's saying to God, are you jealous of this calf? I mean, is there some kind of power sharing going on between the two of you where you bring the winds and the golden calf brings the rain, you bring the sun and the golden calf brings the moon? What's going on here? It's just a hunk of metal. So in order to answer what exactly Moshe is saying and how this is going to defend the Jewish people, I'm going to turn to another question first, and that is, even in the Chumash, what Moshe says to defend at this critical stage when the Jewish people have just, violated the commandment of not having any other gods, and their life is in the balance. And what does Moshe say? Lamar yomru Mitzrayim lemor barot hotziam larogotam barim kalotam mial panei adama. How is that relevant, and what kind of argument is that? Say, hey, the Egyptians are going to say, oh, you couldn't handle it. You took them out of Egypt, but then you got them once you got them into the desert, they did something wrong and you destroyed them. So what is going on here? The Nechama Leibowitz actually points out that what seems irrelevant of Moshe's argument in the Torah is actually tapping into something that Hashem himself said in Parshat Devarim. Hashem said, Pen yomru yadenu ramah v'lo Hashem pa'al kozot. In other words, God himself is concerned that there'll be a misconception among the nations of the world and not realize God's power. They may say that we are the ones who prevail. God doesn't run the world. And the Ramban points out that this is one of the essential roles of the Jewish people. Besides our own mission to perfect ourselves, we are supposed to remind the world. We are supposed to remind the world about the fact that God created the world and God runs the world. There should be no misconceptions about that. And this is one of the whole purpose of the destiny of the world, is that God's presence should be known, and at the end, that we should reach perfection and the world will all recognize God. So it's very, very important. So what the Ramban is basically amplifying what Hashem himself said, and what Nechama Leibowitz is pointing out is that when Moshe said Loma Yomru Mitzrayim, he's actually tapping in to this sort of public relations concern that Hashem has, that the world is not going to understand that Hashem created this world and Hashem runs this world. And there's going to be a misconception, and they're going to say, God couldn't handle it, God wasn't strong enough, whatever. Now, if we come back to our Midrash, interestingly enough, it's a very poignant, now that we've laid this groundwork, it's a very poignant way of getting across the same message. Because basically Hashem is saying, are you jealous? In other words, this golden calf has no power at all. So why would you care? Of course, in the world of ideas, in the idealistic world, Moshe is perfectly right. The Jewish people didn't worship anything that was a god. But the perception, we come back to the perception. So many commentaries say that the golden calf was one of the Egyptian gods. So if the perception was that Hashem was jealous because after he took the Jews out of Egypt where they were idol worshippers and showed them all his miracles, gave them the Torah, and then they went back and worshiped the golden calf again, so Hashem would be in a jealous rage because this would seem to the world to be showing that this was a god. And so God is jealous of this God. And that's why Hashem destroyed him. So it's actually a very, very good argument that Moshe is using, because he's tapping into the same idea that we are worried of the misconceptions of the world, and this would totally feed into that. So now you see that the Midrash was not so irrelevant and not so irreverent, and was actually one leads into the next, and it all makes sense. So have a great Shabbos.